And here we go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. This is the Lone Gunman Podcast, episode number 262, all about John T. Martin. Uh-oh. It appears we're on a loop. Now we're not. But I love the song. Thank you to Roger for our awesome theme music. This stream is going to be all about John T. Martin, or John Thomas Martin, as we figured out. He is going to be one of the more important Martins to the story that we continue to do deep dives on here on YouTube. He was included in our presentation, but again, we couldn't really get too deep into him as we only had about 15 minutes to touch on him. So this episode, we're going to go a lot deeper. So get out your shovels, folks. Welcome in. And just want a quick shout out to everybody who showed up, Joe, to our first stream live Wednesday night on the 22nd. Really surprised me how many people showed up, and thank you again for showing up and showing out for the new and improved Lone Gunman Podcast. And welcome in co-host Joe Borelli, Joe B.
Hey, good morning, everyone. And just to let you know, Rob and I had a little side bet that if we had 50 live at the same time with us in the chat room, he was going to do something unspeakable. And he pleaded, or he sweared we only got to 48. And I'm still going through the evidence with that, but that's also ongoing research. So, but yes, we are very grateful to everyone that tuned in live then and watched after. Over 500 views, I believe. And
yeah, awesome.
That was just the intro. And we are going to be getting into one of the more mysterious Martins today. And we have an amazing story to tell you. It's going to blow your mind and hopefully get you hooked on the rest of the series, because this is a very fascinating story, and not a lot of people have gone into John T. Martin like we have. And with the help of Gary Schoner, first generation, second generation, what is that considered? That's first, right, Rob?
Oh, he's definitely first.
Yeah. I've been corresponding with him for about 8 months now, like email or two a month, nothing crazy. And he has given us a ton of help. He has helped us a lot with this segment, and also verified that he, quote, thinks we found him. And the evidence that we will show you during this show will, I think, convince you as well. And
yes.
Coming from the only person alive that has seen him, allegedly, right? And we will get into the details of that. So
very true.
Weisberg is unfortunately not with us anymore. So let's get into it.
Yep. And we'd be remiss not to mention the fact that a lot of our information was found in the Weisberg archives. There's a lot of correspondence there between himself and Gary Schoner that was contemporary to the time when they were coming across his Martin film and actually meeting John in Minnesota. And also to Paul Trejo. Big thanks to Paul Trejo, who we also interacted with, who actually brought out, at least to everybody's importance, of the Martin film some 10 years ago. There's a lot of misinformation out there about John T. Martin and his film that we hope to clear up with you here today. So without further ado, let's jump right in, Joe.
Okay, well, let me just start. Before I started getting into our Martin research, what were my thoughts about Walker and John T. Martin and the gentleman that served under him in Germany. This was the accepted idea in the community, and who took a film of General Walker's house and the bullet hole and his assassination attempt, and also the Lee Harvey Oswald fracas in New Orleans on August 9th with Carlos Bernier and other Cuban exiles, obviously catching both those events on film pre-assassination is, like I said at Lancer, statistically improbable, almost impossible. And we'll explain why in our working theory in a little bit.
Right. Before we get too far, Joe, let's go ahead and show everybody the Martin film. So we're all on the same page.
The Martin film, right away. All right. Coming up.
A lot of people haven't seen it, Joe. So let's show it. At least the only version we have available now today, which comes from the 6th floor museum. So everybody take in the Martin film, and we will give you some live commentary as we go. There is no sound.
Yes, this is the Martin film as it is right now on the 6th floor museum. Sorry about that. This is him leaving Minnesota, allegedly.
Yep, on Braniff Airways. Some beautiful cloud coverage.
That's a great cloud.
It's a lovely cloud.
Yeah.
That's even a better cloud. Yeah. Looks like an iceberg in the ocean. Could this be Antarctica?
I was just thinking that. I was like, should I make an Antarctica comment? All right, hold on. So.
Okay. Yeah, pause here.
I did.
All right. So this is how do we get here first, Joe?
You mean right before it?
I thought it showed the outside of his house first.
So this is how it goes. Oh, it doesn't let me pause it. God damn it. Hold on.
All right, pause it right there if you can.
Yeah, YouTube is not the best with videos. Okay, so that is what what.
Back it up just a cunny hair there.
Okay. A
little bit more.
We're going slide by slide here. How about that?
A little bit more. A little bit more.
Back.
Yeah. Okay, right there.
We're in the plane.
No. Catch like the first couple of seconds of the next when we're in Walker's house.
Okay.
A little bit more. All right, pause it. Fuck.
Okay, I'm just gonna pause it as like right there.
There. All right. As you can see the bullet hole. This is the window from inside Walker's house looking out towards the rear of his house. You can see the damage done to the window pane and the glass and the screen. There is a definite chunk out there. We just wanted to point that out to you real quick. And no, that is not a white Nash Rambler in General Walker's driveway. That's his neighbor's house. But this is the view looking out the back of his house where the shot came in from behind the wall out back there. So proceed, Joe.
Out the window. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they might have just included the Rambler thing to like muddy waters. But
that might be Ecto 1 from Ghostbusters as well.
Okay, so this is General Walker's house. It's taken like it's at midnight. However, it was taken during the day. And we actually
very dark.
Have some slides to show you and compare from slides we acquired in the 90s. And we'll show you the difference of quality and darkness and cropping that they have done. So now we're in downtown Dallas, right?
Yep.
There's these unnamed people
That look like Cubans.
outside General Walker's house, we believe.
I believe so.
We think.
Don't know for sure, though.
We can't. How could you tell for sure? All right, he's on the plane again. He's going somewhere. Where is he going?
Back in the air. Where's he going?
Well, he happens to be going to NOLA. No, do that. You're much better at that. Being a
NOLA.
Yeah.
New Orleans, Louisiana.
All right.
See, we got some swampy cypress trees right here.
Yeah. Can you please narrate it like they do?
Oh, Roger's in the chat. What's up, buddy? Ha ha. Yes, sir. No true flags here.
I think that's a spruce, no? What is that?
The other Martin film is dark like this, too. Well, we're going to get into that, Mr. No True Flags here. Typing chimp. Martin Short is badge man. We got a comedian in the chat, folks.
Oh, we got a seal.
Yeah. A
He's
very
at the zoo.
teary-eyed seal. He does not look happy to be there at the zoo. All right, this is important. This statue is important.
Very important.
Yeah. It's of Andrew Jackson, I believe, in Lafayette Square Park, Louisiana.
Behind him is Town Hall.
Yeah.
Who is back.
And from there,
is this going to work?
we cut to Canal Street.
Yeah, of course. Did the same thing. Fucking PowerPoint and videos don't love each other. But we're going to pause here anyway because this is Lee Harvey Oswald. This is Brignier as well. So I'm going to play that again and pause.
Yeah, watch closely here, folks. You see Oswald right there coming in your screen on the left. And then Joe jacking up the feed.
Mm-hmm. That's my fault. I mean, it's PowerPoint's fault. But yes, that is Lee. And
the cops are there. You can see the cop car parked on the curb.
And let's just play the rest of it so we don't get any more.
Yeah, play the rest.
Okay.
Yeah, just play it. Play it out. We'll get into some stills later.
Yes. We have the cops, some guy in a hat, the leaflets torn up on the ground.
And we're leaving New Orleans. So that, folks, is about the extent of the Martin film as we know it today that's available at the 6th Floor Museum. Just so everybody's on the same page, everybody knows what it shows now. So Joe, can please continue before we
Yeah. You want me to go to back to the first slide?
Yeah, let's establish how we figured out who John T. Martin was.
Great. Give me 1 second here, gentlemen. And
what's up, Uncle Dave? I see you there.
Who else is in here? I'm not looking at the chat.
We got Roger is in here.
Mr. Roger.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know if you made it to Lancer or not, but if you did and I missed you, I'm sorry.
I think he was going there a little later in the week.
For the anniversary.
Yeah.
Got it.
And we got Uncle Dave Sparks up in here. Typing Chimp, No True Flags are with us. We knew it was going to be a little bit of a struggle doing this at 10 a.m. on Eastern, but
yeah, no, and that's fine
to get people live in here. But hey, if you want to watch live, you can show up. Son of Hawaii from Aloha from Honolulu, Joe.
Ooh, Maui.
Aloha.
Don't get me started on Maui.
Oh shit, Tommy Reynolds is in here. What's up, Tommy?
Is the slide showing?
It is.
It is. So this is.
Oh, hold on, Joe.
Okay.
Breaking news.
Sorry.
Silk City Hot Sauce is in the chat, baby.
Oh.
By the way, folks, head over to silkcityhotsauce.com and enter the code GUNMAN for 20% off of your entire order.
Yes.
There's your live read.
Yeah.
We got to come up with a new commercial, Joe, too.
Oh, wow. Well, my commercial is my like eat bottles I have of Silk City. But my favorite is the honey hot habanero. I absolutely love that one. Like legit love that one. And I've actually like been collecting hot sauce and grow my own hot peppers that I actually brought back from Italy last year and started them hydroponically under a light and kept them outdoors, then brought back indoors. And I'm actually just starting to get like 7 little peppers, and they're not like the Italian long hots you would think of. But without further ado, let's get into it.
Well, stay tuned, Mr. No True Flags, because you're going to see a lot of stuff you've never seen before. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so I guess to True Flags' point, we hadn't seen it before either, and we found it. Where did we find it? In the deep.
Well, we didn't find it.
Oh, we did not.
Tom Scully found it.
Of course, which is right.
It's from the yearbook. Whatever yearbook, Cretan High School.
Yep,
1963, from St. Paul, Minnesota. And this is our guy, and we'll tell you why we think it's our guy. So go ahead.
Yes, and also I think we didn't find it on JFK forum. We found it in some other crazy deep forum, and we'll tell you about the story of how we found him. And I think actually we should get into that right now, Rob, before we get to the graphic.
Before we get too deep.
Yeah. So Rob and I spent a long time trying to find John T. Martin. And John T. Martin is, don't get me wrong, he's a ghost. He's one of the more mysterious Martins. He takes this apparent video of Walker's house and Fracas pre-assassination, sends it into the FBI, sends it into Garrison, sends it into the HSEA, gives it to Schoner and Weisberg, gives it to the 6th Floor Museum, gives it to pretty much everyone, but doesn't comment and hasn't said a word about it. And his one condition was when he gave it to Gary Mack in 2007, I believe, Rob, his one condition was don't ever effing contact me again. So, yeah, we knew finding him was not going to be easy, but we were not deterred easily. And we probably went through 10 false J. Martin, like, yes, we found him. This is him. I know it. Like,
yeah.
Timothy Timmons, every other teenager.
A variety of John T. Martins
you could think of.
Since deceased,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, everything. And we were disappointed time after time when we realized it didn't line up with the documents and the evidence that we have and that we were going to show you shortly. And I don't know how many it was that when we actually found that picture, but when we cross-referenced it with the rest of it, I noticed something interesting. And I'm going to bring you back to that picture because a little known tidbit about me is I went to military academy. And in 1963, Cretan High School was a military academy, ROTC. And there's no way you're going to be a sergeant as a senior in high school, nor is the person under you going to be a sergeant first class. So I quickly realized he wasn't in the military. He was in military school. And whatever he told Weisberg and Schoner about serving under General Walker, we thought might have either been a lie by John T. Martin or a mistake by Weisberg and or Schoner, thinking serving under him meant serving under him in Germany. But he would have been 15 in 1961 or even 14. And there would have been no way for him to be under General Walker's service. So we theorized it could be he served under him in the Minutemen or in some other aspect personally. And
Yeah.
before we move on, I want to focus in on some of his. This is his bio, his self-written bio from his senior class yearbook, right? Chess, chess, chess. Not saying it once, like classical music, which will come into play too, but 3 times. Very conservative Republican, wants to establish the Supreme Court. I didn't even know that was a Republican stance in the 60s, but I also wasn't alive then. So, and then chess club 2, 3, 4, chess club again. Obviously, very adamant about chess, right? Want me to move on, Rob?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Okay. Here we go with my PowerPoint skills here. So we found. Can everyone see this? Hold on. Rob, what are you seeing? This is messing up here.
I'm just seeing your big, beautiful face. That's all.
Okay, I'm not sharing. Sorry about that, gentlemen.
Typing chimp. I grew up 15 minutes south in Farmington, Minnesota. Was now Cretin-Durham Hall High School currently. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, did you know
chimp.
John T. Martin? I mean, I don't know how old you are, sir, but
yeah, we can message you online later. We have some leads because we're not done on our search for him. We are going to get a statement from this person.
Well, before we hit this directory, let's talk about the Minuteman card.
Okay. God damn it. Well, Microsoft isn't working for me right now, so
Van Cleburne was.
I'm going to exit
hell
out
of a musician.
and start it again. So 1 second here, folks. Appreciate your patience. All right.
We don't know John. He might have been a master debater as well, not a master sergeant.
All right, and it will be shown in 3, 2, 1, and this is actually a picture of all 3.
He may not have been gay. We don't know that.
Well, right. He could have been drawn to Walker because of his ideals. Not, Walker would have never turned away.
He did like a good butch haircut, though.
But that's why we are pretty sure he was inside Walker's home. We know from the films and the evidence and the documents.
All right, so we found John T. Martin's Minuteman card. This was found in, I think, 65 or something in a trash pile thrown out by the FBI in like Kansas City or something weird like that. I don't know who found this thing, but the Minuteman card is the white card in the bottom left corner, and it has an address: 1752 Englehart, St. Paul, Minnesota, sex male, age 17. Now, this card that was found in 65 was actually from 63. So we know that he was 17 in 63. Occupation student, which he would have been then. Skills and hobbies: music, coin collecting, chess. Remember, folks. And microscopy. Activity, material, dues. So our boy John T. Martin at the age of 17 was a dues-paying member of the Minutemen organization in Minnesota. Now, when we found John T. Martin at the University of Minnesota, this is the bottom right. This is the student directory. John Thomas Martin. 1752 Englehart, which matches up with the Minuteman card, which also matches up with the address on the FBI documents pertaining to the Martin film, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But everything lines up, including the year of graduation, which is highlighted here, 67.
Bottom right.
So, yeah. So
Which
he would have started in 63. He would have graduated in, if he graduated high school in spring of 63 and started in the fall of 63, then this is when he would have graduated. And that SLA, STP means St. Paul, but the SLA, Joe, if you can put back that blue directory up.
Yeah. This is actually the bigger shot of the. So there were 3 John Martins at the University of Minnesota during that time: John Kenneth, John Richard, and John Thomas. But obviously, because of the address match, we were able to narrow it down to John Thomas.
Yeah, because some people have speculated his middle name could be Timothy or Timmons or Thomas, but this nails it down. So, according to the student directly, if you look at down near the bottom, it says SLA, which is a science, literature, and the arts degree. Mm-hmm. So science, think microscopy, what this guy was into, everything kind of lines up that this was the guy.
Yeah, and we have no reason to suspect there could be, any other explanation for these 3 corresponding documents from completely different sources. And, it dispels the rumor that John Thomas Martin was serving under Walker and was in the Army in 1961 or before.
Yeah, but we think that when he was talking to Weisberg and Schoner when he was at the University of Minnesota, they may have misunderstood him when he said that he had served under Walker. We believe he was probably corresponding with Walker, although we have no proof of that whatsoever. But the fact that when he got to Dallas, that he went to Walker's house, was invited inside, implies some kind of a previous relationship. Unless he just randomly walked up to the door. I mean, obviously he had to know who this guy was. Walked up to the door and introduced himself and say hi. It's likely they would have had a little communication beforehand through the Minutemen organization.
Yeah, especially when you look at his bio and how gung-ho he was for far right politics at even age 17, and yeah, it makes a lot of sense to us and lines all up. So where would you like to go next, Rob? Do you want to go into the film now and the decodes?
Sure. So a little bit about the film. When it comes to the iterations of the film that we know about, okay, obviously he took the film in 1963. In December of 63, he called the FBI in St. Paul and said, hey, I have a copy, or I think I captured Lee Harvey Oswald on film in New Orleans when I was there. And they told him to bring the film in, and they would take a look at it. And they ended up sending it to New Orleans, where they looked at it and they determined that there was nothing of value, nothing to see here, folks. And they sent it back to him. And when he got the film back, he thought that the film had been edited in some way. But he didn't really elaborate on that until later. But in 1967, he heard about the Garrison investigation, and he voluntarily sent a copy of his film to Jim Garrison. Okay. In 1968, Weisberg and Schoner show up in May to the campus. He makes two copies, one for Weisberg and one for Schoner, Gary Schoner. And he voluntarily gave a copy to the HSCA. He also voluntarily gave a copy, he thought he was voluntarily giving his original film to the Sixth Floor Museum in 2007. But unfortunately for John T. Martin, the film that we just watched and it's at the Sixth Floor Museum is not the original film. It actually has a date code on it that shows 1977. Now, what that means, folks, is that somebody at the HSCA made a copy of his film and gave him back a copy and kept the original. And the original is not in NARA. There is no copy of the John T. Martin film in NARA at all whatsoever. So somebody out there still has the original Martin film in their possession that was associated with the HSCA. Now, we'll let you use your imaginations here. We're not going to point any fingers at who we might think it is. But you're all smart people here. I think we can figure it out, what I'm insinuating. Again, we have no proof, but it is what it is. But that is the chronological. So you understand there's not very many copies out there of this Martin film. Now, in talking to Gary Schoner, he has a copy. He has not seen it in 50 years and does not know where it is, but he's pretty sure he has it somewhere. And to this date, he has not found it yet.
Yes, and we actually discovered correspondence from Schoner to Weisberg that he was looking for it in 1993. So that was 30 years ago. So
right, and that was 25 years after, they had done what they did down there or in Minnesota.
Yeah, so and we tried. We tried.
And I reached out to the curator at the Weisberg Archives because we knew Weisberg had a copy at some point, and Clayton Ogilvie, because I asked him, I said, look, I know it's not digitized and it's not online, but is there a possibility that somewhere at Hood College on a dusty shelf somewhere sitting in a box is a reel of film entitled The Martin Film? Is that possible? He says, no, everything's been cataloged. Everything has been digitized and online. There's absolutely no copy of the Martin film that Weisberg had that they got. So, and we don't know what happened to the Garrison copy of the Martin film. Other than that, it's been in very few places. I believe it was, talking to Martin Shackelford, it was available on sale or for purchase, from some obscure like Montreal film studio in the 80s or 90s, and we have no idea how they got their copy or anything like that. But so it's a very, very rare film, and to find the original would be great, because then we could see if certain things have been edited, and why this copy that is at the sixth floor right now seems darkened and cropped in places.
Yes.
And even some earlier descriptions of the Martin film say that it shows the wall in General Walker's house that the bullet went in above his head. Yes. Yeah, right here is the thing. Inside the house of General Walker, of the house wall damaged from a bullet, which is not in the Martin film that we watched at the beginning of the show, available at the Sixth Floor Museum. So why certain little things like that might have been edited out, is worthy of some more investigation.
Yes, and we have tried every possible route to get the earliest version of the John Martin film, and we have access to a HSCA copy around that time, and it would it costs a lot to digitalize.
Yeah, and we don't even know, everything that's on there.
Right.
And
So
I
I
see a
want to show
comment.
you.
Hold on. I see a
Okay.
comment about Frontline, so I wanted to address that real quick. I don't think that Frontline
They might have used other reporters' films, right?
Well, we have here from the Weisberg Archives. Frontline was in touch with me, and I sent that guy copies of the Martin and Doyle records that I have. Records, not film. That is for their coming Oswald profile for the 30th anniversary. They've got ignorant people and conspiracy nuts working for them, along with Tony Summers, of whom I do not have a high opinion, and Scott Malone, who has little or no knowledge of the fact. Neither has been in touch with me, and both know what I have. Tony has used it extensively and is so cheap a dirt bag. The description of him by another Irishman, he did not even give me a copy of his book. He and his took many days of our time here, but if they regard a picture of Walker's house as a significant fact worth spending all that time and money on, I take this as an advanced indication of the junk they will air, and we do not know where they got their Martin film or whether or not it is. The name John Martin is probably more common than another name in the so-called investigations. And he said the second reason was that I got a call from a guy working, and this is Schoner now talking. The first was Weisberg. Schoner says the second reason that I got a call from a guy working for Frontline who asked about the Martin film, which resurfaced when you did the WLOL radio appearances out here so many years ago. Apparently, on closer examination of the entire film, something I never did because it was supposedly family footage, it appears that John Martin shot footage in General Walker's living room after the Oswald shooting when the hole was in the wall. I recall that Martin told us that he had left right-wing work when Walker's far right-wing stance burned him into a pacifist who was discharged because he wouldn't pick up a weapon. This would obviously not square with a visit to Walker in Dallas in '63. Jim Marr's book listed as a strange coincidence. Schoner says, I'm still looking around for my copy of the film to screen it and see what they're talking about. If this is accurate, I would have trouble explaining, number one, why Martin told us what he did. Number two, why Martin would have given us the film. Unfortunately, there are many John Martins in the phone book here, and I have not had the time to try to locate him. I feel old just saying this, but it was 25 years ago. So that's your Frontline. They did not get their copy from Weisberg or Schoner.
Yeah.
They got documents about it, but not the actual film.
That is correct, Robin. Thank you for reading that. But we got a $5 super sticker, I believe it is, from Typing Chimp. So
thank you, Typing Chimp.
And they said good job, and we want to thank you for that. So,
muchos gracias.
Yes, and yeah, obviously the Walker slides we think weren't the only slides that were messed with in that film, and we can get into some of our working theories shortly. I took down the presentation for a second as we were talking. Would you like me to present the 3 slides we have on the difference of the quality of each?
Yes. Let us proceed, shall we?
Yes. Let me see if I can not screw it up. All right. Here we go. And here we go. Let me say here.
Joe's favorite part of the song.
It is a pretty good part. And by the way, we have a full 3-minute Martin song that we haven't released yet.
Yeah, it's coming. We just have to figure it all out as we're figuring out this whole streaming thing. But I think this show is going much better than the other one did. So we didn't have 5 false starts, which is a positive.
3. Come on, let's not. Come on.
There's a lot of takes there.
Yeah, well, it's okay. We are researchers. We're not entertainers.
All right, so let everybody know what they're looking at here.
Okay, on the left is the Martin Shackelford slide that he was selling in the 90s, giving out. And on the right is the screenshot of the 6th floor museum copy on the right. As you can see, it looks like another piece of leaf almost, the bullet hole, where here on the left, it is much more clearer. And
Yeah. So
so
why
that is
is the
number,
6th floor museum copy so much darker?
they darkened it by like extreme amount, like not even trying to hide it type of darkening. And you'll see this in the next one, which is the General Walker mailbox. Also on the right, shot first slide. I probably should have had them switched around for consistency purposes. But as you can see, it's clearly cropped and darkened, edited for at least the 4th time by this point. February 1963, when John T. got back from military school, probably, and looked at it, and it was able to send it out. Patsy and or Martin in 68.
Joe, we should probably explain to everybody what we mean by Patsy.
Oh, we won't. All right, explain it then.
Okay, so there was a fella who was going to the University of Minnesota as well at the same time as John T. Martin, and he was in film as well. And his name was Michael Patsy, of all things. You know.
Yeah, let's stop and think of let's think of that name, Mike.
Yeah,
Patsy.
I'm just
and thank you, John Naylor, for the $5 super chat as well.
Yes, thank you, John.
So
Michael Patsy. Yeah,
his last name is literally Patsy. Is Martin and Weisberg gave the film to splice or make copies of, right?
I was just going to let you twist out there in the wind for a hot minute.
What am I twisting out on? So that was the copy that Martin, who was listening to this radio show, as we demonstrated earlier, he never went into the military. Like we found no evidence he was ever in the military. So he would have been in Minnesota around 1967, 1968. And he called into the radio show Marathon. Schoner and Weisberg ended up doing like a 10-hour, what was it, KLOL, Rob? KWOW?
I don't know what it was.
Yeah, one of those local university radio stations. And they did a call-in show. And Martin called in and offered them up the film in 1968. And a lot of other weird things happened that summer. Gary Schoner got, unfortunately, jumped and beaten very badly. In fact, he had a long recovery, and Penn Jones writes about that, if you want to look into that. And then, of course, someone might have done something with it in the HSCA in the 70s. And then, of course, we actually have this wrong. John T. reached out and gave them the film. We believe it was in 2007, right?
Yes.
Yes. So we're not perfect. But yeah, so the next slide is also side by side from the Shackelford and the Martin film of the New Orleans fracas. And I mean, the quality here is just
night and day.
It's unbelievable. I mean, they didn't even try to hide it. So I don't think we can deny that this film was messed with, along with pretty much every other film we can think of in this assassination story, unfortunately. And someone made a comment earlier. Yeah, I wonder if there's like an FBI basement, like 10 floors down below ground level, that just has all these films, has the Real Zapruder film, all that good stuff.
Might be. Wonder. But now, Joe, let's go through this timeline a little bit from 1968. So it was May 15th, and we established this date through school newspapers who actually wrote about Weisberg coming to the University of Minnesota to do a radio show on WLOL. Still unclear if Martin called into the radio show or was in person at the speech. There's differing stories for both, but it doesn't really matter. They met up, and on May 23rd, Martin agrees to let them use film to get prints and slides of both movie and prints. May 28th, Schoner writes, becoming good friends with Martin. He's interested in wildlife and reptiles. Check with Lou Ivon, because by now, so when Weisberg left the University of Minnesota, he was only there for a couple of days, but he went straight down to New Orleans to the Garrison camp. And he said, check with Lou Ivon to see if Garrison has Martin's film. He sent it to them. Martin is wondering if they kept it or not. And on May 31st, Weisberg writes back, Garrison does have Martin's film, although it's not the original. There's no obvious splices, at least 2, possibly 3 non-obvious splices. Not believable. Martin took so little footage of the arrest, wants them to measure the footage, asked for a print of Oswald footage alone with a leader at both ends. Garrison said that he sees no significance in the Martin film, but Weisberg and Bill Boxley do. The first mention of the Martin trying to get him to sign an affidavit alleging the FBI altered his film prior to giving the film to the FBI. He had spliced out certain blank film and nothing else. The copy returned to him had no such splices, and that footage relating to Oswald seems shorter and lacks panning from one shot to the other. Weisberg acknowledges having 2 copies of the Martin film, wants Patsy to try enhancement skills on one of them. On June 16th, he asks for more blow-ups and prints, complains about Patsy's work. June 18th, he explains he took the film to the best color place in the state. Patsy did not do that. Says slides are of good quality. Something rotten with film upon seeing it a second time. Going to ask Martin for another copy of the film. Loses contact with Patsy. Says Martin willing to go swear out an affidavit. Schoner gets a death threat. An Army intelligence man named Jim Murray leaves for Alaska. And they sent 5 slides of the film to Lou Ivon in New Orleans. June 20th, they paid Martin for a dub of his entire reel, but he only wants the Oswald footage, says Martin can do. In 1967, Garrison's office contacted him and asked for a copy of the film, which he sent them. Mentions 2 other leafleting films and thinks both were edited by the FBI, and we'll get into those here in a minute. Gives Schoner's Patsy's contact info again. June 24th. Talks more about getting with Martin for a second copy of the film and an affidavit. Now, Jim Murray, Schoner's,
research assistant?
Research assistant, yeah. Is found dead in Alaska by a gunshot wound with Schoner's name on a piece of paper in his pocket.
Yeah.
June 26th, they asked NARA for the Martin report. Nothing comes back. Barry Ernest couldn't find anything. July 2nd, written proof of nothing on Martin. Before affidavit, he wants to know if Garrison has his original film. It would have frame numbers and splicing from Martin himself. Send 8 stills and black and white copy to Lou Ivon. Plans to keep Patsy busy enhancing other films. July 8th. Boxley agrees. Martin film was edited. Film reveals no obvious amateur splices. Now, on July 17th, Gary Schoner is beaten very badly. When they say within an inch of your life, pretty much. It did some permanent damage to him for sure. I believe he was in the hospital for a good month. Says the FBI must have kept the original film and returned an edited copy to Martin and talks of a better film. That's the Doyle film that shows a better quality. Martin becoming hard to contact, apartment search, threatening phone calls to Schoner. Now, on August 21st, a month after he was beaten, he meets Barry Ernest in Philadelphia, where he had gone home to convalesce for a little while. And if you actually read Barry Ernest's book, the Girl on the Stairs, he talks about meeting Schoner and describes him a month after his beating. I mean, he still has obvious bruises, scarring, limping. So he's still in a bad way.
And I was wrong. It wasn't Penn Jones. Yes.
No, yeah. August 29th, he heads back to Minnesota, and they go on about trying to get Martin to sign his affidavit. Into October, they're still having trouble finding Martin. So we think maybe they scared Martin away with Schoner being beaten and his research assistant being murdered or killed. And this kind of spooked Martin from talking with him anymore, because they never did get the affidavit.
Nope. And Schoner never got Martin to sign it. Obviously, if you were Martin and you saw what happened to Schoner, I probably don't blame Mr. John Martin for not signing it either. But we had some help with actually with finding a lot of this info from one of our listeners who was very curious. And Curious George. And I want to give a shout out to him because he really gave us he really helped us along with this segment and found us the directory and got us to the working theory, which we will talk about shortly on what happened with the Martin film. Although even Rob and I have some disagreements of how it might have gone down. So,
yeah.
Let me know where you want to go next.
Let's touch on the Doyle film a little bit, Joe.
All right.
And why it's important. Because it kind of shows the same scene where Oswald's getting arrested in New Orleans, right? Do you have it available, Joe?
I'm working on it, yes, sir.
Yeah, it's be nice just to refresh everybody's memory with the. Sorry, I just saw Roger's comment there.
Roger's the goat.
Hey, Curious George might be the typing chimp.
Whoa.
We'll have to investigate more on that.
Well, we determined he's jet setting.
Oh, he's a playboy for sure.
Yeah, he's crushing it.
All right, while Joe works on finding the Doyle film, let me read something to you concerning the Doyle film. And this is from an FBI document dated 11/27/63. So the Doyles were a little bit more quick on the draw to let the FBI know, hey, we got a film that shows Oswald in it. And it's interesting. I guess it was, 4 days after the assassination.
And I do have it ready, Mr. Big Bad Bob.
All right, well, let's go ahead and watch it real quick then.
Okay.
And then we'll come back and talk.
So we don't do the same thing I did last time. I'm just going to play it all the way through. And
just let it play. Let it play, baby.
Yeah. Just let it rip. Bombs away, Bobby.
Let it play.
Oh, well, might help if I put in presentation mode first.
Take 3.
Take 3. Take 4. Take 6. All right. Sharing now. All right, and this is from the library, so it has a stamp on it because it would cost us like a few $100s to get that little trademark thing off.
Well, I have a better copy, but I wasn't able to get it to Joe in time. But
Okay, so now they're showing the more details of the street fracas and much more color.
yeah, Oswald's pissed. He's pointing to his stuff on the ground that they ripped up.
And there he is right in the back there. Yeah, you saw him creeping. Now they're all walking away. No incident. Oswald wanted to get arrested.
And there it is.
That is it. It is very short. And unlike John T., we actually believe that the Doyles might have been actually near the fracas when it occurred, as occurred to John T.
The Doyles just so happened to be walking down the street. Okay.
Right.
So it says at about 4:00 in the afternoon of Friday, August the 9th, 1963, Mr. Doyle, Mr. Wilson, and the young son of each were walking on Canal Street in New Orleans. Approximately a quarter of a block behind Mrs. Doyle, Mrs. Wilson, and their 2 daughters. So you have all the girls walking ahead of all the guys by like a quarter of a block.
That makes sense.
As they reached a point approximately the middle of the block, some 5 blocks toward the Mississippi River from the Young Hotel, they observed 2 young men. Let me repeat that. 2 young men who were carrying signs which bore pro-Cuban inscriptions. They had leaflets in their hands. One of the men wore on his front a yellow or orange-colored sign which bore as a part of its description the words "Viva la Fidel." As Mr. Doyle, Mr. Wilson, and their 2 sons reached the scene, a group of persons who appeared to be Cubans took issue with the 2 demonstrators, and almost immediately police officers arrived and prevented trouble. After a short discussion, the demonstrators were placed in a patrol car by the officers and taken from the scene. During the argument, a placard carried by the demonstrator not wearing the sign was smashed, and the leaflets were torn from the hands of the men, plural, and scattered on the sidewalk. The pieces of the placard were placed in the patrol car when the men were taken away. Motion pictures of the incident were taken by Jim Doyle, 14-year-old son of Mr. Doyle. Following the assassination of President Kennedy, Mr. Doyle and other members of his family viewed the film taken in New Orleans and agreed that the pictures of the young man who wore the yellow-colored sign strongly resembled photographs they had seen of Lee Harvey Oswald.
Hey, Rob.
Yes, sir.
We have another request to slow it again and pause it, the Doyle film.
Okay.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, you can go ahead and work on it while I talk.
Long. We're not going to pause it. It's I can try, but it tends to jump to the end of the presentation. So I will play it one more time.
Well, you can just keep it running while I'm talking.
That's a good compromise.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got another correspondence here to Tom Bethel from the Garrison team.
Here it goes.
From Weisberg. It says, "Dear Mr. Bethel, when I phoned you on or about 25 November 67 concerning the Oswald literature scuffle, you said you would like to obtain the movies taken by J. Pat Doyle's son Jim. Paul Hock told me you mentioned it again to him, so I wrote Mr. Doyle and then phoned him on January 21st, 1968. Doyle was very cooperative and promised to send the film to the address you gave him. I encouraged him to send you the original and retain a copy for himself, but he may send the copy. Mr. Doyle stated that he gave the film to the FBI immediately after the assassination. About 2 months after it was returned to him, and his family viewed the film and noticed that some of it was missing. Some of the pictures taken were close-ups of the arresting officer, which were clear enough to observe his badge number. These and certain other views are no longer part of the film." So we got a problem here, folks. Somebody was with Oswald that day, handing out literature, marching down the street, wearing placards. So who was the mystery man that was with Lee Harvey Oswald that was seen by the Doyles not only the men Doyles, but also the women Doyles. They said that there was 2 men present. Now the Doyles assert that when they got their film back from the FBI, that it had been edited. John Martin said when he got his film back from the FBI that it had been edited. And also there was some footage from WDSU of
Rob,
Oswald. Yes.
if you want to, so I was replaying the Doyle film and I paused it as you were speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And, this film, obviously, I guess is not the one you should have sent me, but either way, this is Oswald right here. He's arguing with the cops. This is that guy, that heavyset guy in the hat. So John T. Martin is behind this guy right here, filming this way.
Right.
I just want to point that out before I play the rest of it.
So you have two teenage kids.
Right. You want me to play the rest of it?
Yeah.
We have Lee Harvey Oswald. I think he's over here right now.
He says, as I informed you earlier, J. Pat Doyle and John Martin informed me that the film returned to them was not their original film and had been edited. I also informed you that the WDSU news director provided the same information. What is relevant to this follows, where I will call it to your attention.
There's Oswald as he walks by. The fracas is leaving, is disbanding. Oswald wants to get arrested and wants to talk to the FBI. So there we go with that. That was for you, Mr. Great Stock Vortex.
So what's interesting there, folks, is everybody that has footage of this event thinks that their film was edited by the FBI before they got it back. And obviously, if there was 2 people there, or there was somebody with Oswald, that person has been edited out for whatever reason.
Well, I think
which is interesting.
I think the reason is because having him with a teammate, someone with him on this would not help portray or convey the lone nut narrative. So you obviously have to get rid of that other person with him.
Or they were an FBI informant or something else.
Or it was Thomas,
you know what I'm saying?
Maybe. Who knows? We're not, like I said, it's in the FBI's basement. So
yeah, we can only speculate at this point about who may have been Oswald's partner. Was it Carlos Quiroga? Was it Kerry Thornley? I mean, who the hell knows at this point?
No. Yeah. Very hard to tell, but two very rare films, the Doyle and the John T. Martin film. Obviously, the John T. Martin film on the 6th floor website we showed you is don't get me started, but the Doyle film is very interesting too, and shows you a different kind of perspective of it, and I want to. Rob and I also now want to kind of debunk a common myth that John T. Martin was as close as Doyle and started filming. And I'm
hold on, Joe.
As Rob sets it up.
Let me find
where he wants me to wait.
Yeah, here it's been a common misconception, and this comes from a mid-90s description of the Martin film. Attributed to Martin Shackelford. Says, and I don't know where he gets his information from, but he's describing the film and what we see in the film. But he says quite clearly, aroused by a commotion on Canal Street, Martin crossed to see what was happening and began filming. Okay. Now, Joe's going to show you a very interesting
graphic that we made,
map that we found and made. So in the Martin film, we see the picture
top right.
Yeah, it's in Jackson Square.
That's where
it's
the horse
actually
is.
What's that?
That's where the horse is.
Yeah, it was not Lafayette Square. It was actually in Jackson Square. And I don't know who the statue is of, whether it might be Andrew Jackson. Hell, that might be why it's called Jackson Square.
He thinks it's Andrew Jackson.
Yeah. But that's where it was. It was way down Canal Street. Way down Decatur.
Right in front of town.
Down by the waterfront. Okay. So this is the last image on the Martin film before we get to the street fracas. Now follow along with Joe's cursor and count off the blocks from where John T. Martin was to where we got to go. So we're coming up Decatur Street.
1.
So John T. Martin and his supersonic hearing.
5, 6.
Here's a commotion.
7, 8, 9 blocks before it even reaches the Havana Bar.
Now, we're 9 blocks away from the Havana Bar, which is Arrest Pena's bar, which we'll get to more in a second. Right beside it, almost, is the Casa Roca, which is Carlos Brinier's store. All right. Then we're on the corner of Decatur and Canal Street right here. If you make a right onto Canal Street and go up another, how many blocks? 1, 2, 3, 3.5, 4.
3 or 4. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the street fracas happened. So there's no way in hell John T. Martin heard a commotion some 12 to 15 blocks away in New Orleans and went racing over there to see what happened. That just did not happen, folks. That is a common misconception. So when you lay it all out on a map, you can see quite clearly there's no way in hell that he would have ever seen or heard, a commotion to go check out. Now, that would lead, of course, to the obvious question is, how did Martin know to go to that location on Canal Street to get this on videotape? Well, let's rewind for a second and go back to a letter that Lee Harvey Oswald wrote to V.T. Lee on August the 1st. This is 8 days before the film is made, before this arrest happened. He writes a letter to V.T. Lee, who is the head of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee in New York, in which he states, let's see, he tells him he rented an office, and something about
he got robbed for everything he was worth, and how he was beat up by Cuban exiles this letter was written on August 1st, which would indicate that the previous another fracas, or
well, we'll get to that, but the one that he wrote to V.T. Lee, he reports that he'd been attacked by some Cuban exiles, and the incident robbed me of what support I had, leaving me alone. And Oswald also wrote that he was officially cautioned by the police. And of course, this was written a whole week prior to when Oswald was actually arrested in the street fracas. So unless he could see into the future, there's no way that Oswald would have known that this was going to happen. What we found in the course of our investigation was that there may have possibly been another street fracas that Oswald was referring to in this V.T. Lee letter. And really, the only place we found anything about it was in Henry Hertz's book. In the Confession of Robert Easterling chapter, he writes this. While he is not sure of the date, Easterling insists that he witnessed an incident involving Oswald and the Havana Bar that is unrecorded in standard accounts of Oswald's New Orleans activities. Easterling claims he came upon a sidewalk fracas on Decatur Street near the doorway to the Havana Bar. Several Cubans were kicking and stomping a young man Easterling came to know as Oswald. As Easterling stood watching, Rivera rushed out of the bar with a broken beer bottle and forced the men to stop beating Oswald. Police officers arrived about that time and the scuffle ended. Easterling claims that Oswald got up and without any comment walked away. Easterling did not learn what the altercation was about. So, it could be, and we're speculating here, that this is the fight that he wrote to V.T. Lee about. But the problem with this fight is that nobody recorded it.
There's no coverage of it.
Nobody got arrested. So maybe we're thinking that the August 9th version of this Greek fracas was take two. Yeah. And
less
that it was
than we had.
Yeah. And that it was purposefully set up for John Martin to possibly record. And of course, Doyle just happened to be there as well. But when we get to our conclusion, we'll let you more in our working theories about why we think that might have possibly happened. We'll get there, I promise.
Yeah. And I agree with Rob. I actually believe that, these were, low level type of assets trying to, sheep dip Oswald, at least in this. I mean, not that Bernier was a low level asset, but, they didn't do it properly. So they had to redo it. And Oswald mistakenly sent out this letter possibly early. And then we know what happens after with the media campaign that follows the August 9th fracas, him wanting to get arrested, him calling the FBI, him then going on the TV with Bernier and the guy from Inca. And then there was a radio thing as well, wasn't there, Rob? Well, I don't think we've ever gotten that.
Well, it was a TV broadcast, TV show.
I thought there was a radio one as well.
There was a TV interview, and then there was a TV debate with Bernier.
Right, but we see like 10 seconds of that.
Who?
That video, that debate with Bernier on TV and the Inca guy.
Well, there's a longer version than 10 seconds.
Oh, I mean, but it's not the full thing because that would...
I've seen the full thing. I don't know what you've seen.
Oh, I haven't seen the full thing.
You're missing out, son.
Yeah, well, it when you listen to Oswald during that interview, you realize he's actually very well educated and not the lone nut as he is commonly portrayed. So I actually haven't seen that. So still so much to discover.
Where are we going next, Joe?
Where we could...
Cretan?
Yeah, so let's do that. We did all the rest. We showed both films. We confirmed we have the right Martin. So let's go to Cretan today.
Here's the deal. Part of tracking this guy down, John T. Martin, there's the question. Is this guy still alive? He would have been 17 and 63. That put him at 77, 78. So it's quite possible he could definitely still be alive. And we know that he was still alive as late as 2013, which was the 50th class reunion of his Cretan high school class of 1963. As we have here, he made a couple of donations and deferred gifts to his alma mater.
Yep. The graphic on the right is of the 50th anniversary donation, and the one on the left is a deferred gift. There was only a couple instances where you had two asterisks next to a guy's name. He think that means he might have actually made two different donations, deferred gifts, maybe tax write-offs, whatever. And that was a different year other than 63. That might have been, other than 2013. might have been 2014 or possibly the year before, but it's close to 10 years that we found he's still been donating, and we have tried to find him during the current Cretan 63 class reunions, and that is a whole nother story of trying to get that. Let me see this.
So for those out there familiar with their math, you can do the math. Okay, since it was just the 60th anniversary of the death of JFK, and that was in 1963, then it's time for another class reunion for Cretan, which will be the 60th, right?
Yeah, it would have been. So yeah,
we tried to establish with folks that I know who live in Minnesota to try and track this guy down. And I'm talking, we tried everything to find phone numbers, addresses,
emailing the head of the class.
Yeah, I even emailed the class reunion guy who was in charge of that. Got nowhere there. And interestingly enough, we did find that the class of 1963 meets at a certain bar in St. Paul.
Don't mention the name.
At every second Thursday of the month. Yeah. We even thought about sending somebody in there.
We tried.
We did try. The bottom line is we did not actually make contact with John T. Martin. We believe he still is alive.
Yes.
We don't want to bother the man, but we do have questions. And just to see if he'd be, we know that he did not want to ever be contacted regarding this again, but it seems like at every big turn, he's more than willing to volunteer his film to the cause. So, it's been all these years later, and if we could just get an interview with this guy to, dispel myths and get the truth, that's all we were trying to do. We don't want to bug the man. We don't want to disrupt his life or anything like that.
Yeah.
But
we wanted Schoner to do it. We tried to
since they know each other
to finish the story. Be like, this is your story. Here's the fucking baseball lined up on a tee for you. All you got to do is hit a home run and go to the place we tell you to and make contact with him again, or here's his contact information. And but he is a ghost. I mean, don't get me wrong. And Rob and I have a joke that Cretan, we don't call it that. We call it Spook Academy, because almost everyone went into like aerospace defense or something like that. And we did a little digging on a couple other people, but not really.
We did some digging on, and we had very capable private detectives do some digging, and this guy is a ghost, folks. I mean, to the point where I even had people in Canada looking, because we thought he might have dodged the draft in the late 60s and headed to Canada. But
yeah, we looked through the Vietnam death lists.
Yeah, he's not on there.
Our PI actually had a theory that this guy doesn't exist. But we found, no, it's true, Rob.
Yeah, I know.
Like, this guy doesn't exist, guys. And we're like, well, we know his parents' name according to the yearbook. We're pretty sure he does, but we're still trying to figure it out. And Minnesotians holler at us over.
And to answer No True Flags question there, any relation to the other Martin film guy, also from Minnesota? We looked into that possibility because we know that John T. Martin was on vacation. Okay, so he's on summer vacation, before he starts University of Minnesota in August
to visit family.
Yeah, I mean, why else would you go to Dallas from Minnesota? I mean, not to sightsee. I mean, there's nothing there. So it's possible that he was related to that person,
John Martin Jr.
John Martin Jr., who worked at the Postal Annex, who took the Dealey Plaza film. It's quite possible That guy, I believe at the time, was 52 years old. At the time in 1963. So who knows if it was an uncle?
It's possible.
Partly not old enough that he was a grandfather or anything like that, but it's definitely possible that they could have been related. Martins from Minnesota. They were obviously there to visit family, and they probably had family in New Orleans as well.
We tried to connect them for a long time. We thought it was almost a certainty that this was the family member of some sort they were going to visit, and we couldn't do it per the documents.
Yeah, hold on. Swin Johnson, I got to tell you, we never said Braniff Airlines had direct flights from Dallas to New Orleans. Okay. He took Braniff Airlines from Minnesota to Dallas. We do not know what airline he took from Dallas to New Orleans. Okay. So nice try to poo-poo, but sorry.
We've looked into that.
We've already looked into all that. We know there was no direct flights from Dallas to New Orleans on Braniff Airlines. But we don't know that he was on Braniff Airlines. Right. We know that he was on Braniff from Minnesota to Dallas, but not necessarily Dallas to New Orleans. So,
and that is why we're sharing our documents with serious researchers, because
and if you want to see all of our documentation, again, folks, head over to the description in this video to our locals community. Join up. It's $5 a month. You have access to all of our files on John T. Martin. And believe me, we got a ton of them, and you can see them all.
And other perks like
our TSBD.
Yes. So let's finish this off here. I think I brought it up once prematurely, of course, as I like to do.
Just like you ejaculate.
Yes, that's you and my girlfriend. They complain about the same thing. I'm just kidding. But this was one of the guys that we were able to point out from the 50th anniversary that we thought might look a lot like John T. did in 1963. And of course, this is a complete Hail Mary. But we know that he is among those pictures. And we have a University of Minnesota photo as well, but we did not show that to you because we couldn't 100% verify that it was John Thomas as compared to the other two John Martins that were at University of Minnesota. It just says John Martin. It looks very similar to him, but we didn't want to show it if we didn't want to be 100% sure. And of course, we're not 100% sure about this, but we wanted to show the similarity of this and how this is our current possible suspect. And listen, Rob is right. He's given his film to everyone every possible time. It's 60 years, at least 55 since the University of Martin. That's what we're studying at. University of Minnesota drama in 1968. So it's time to give a statement and say what you know. And are we saying a 17-year-old kid that took a video was involved in the assassination? I'm not saying that. Are you saying that, Rob?
No, I nodded yes, and then I immediately went no. We're just joking.
No.
Now, when we get into our working theories, I may assert something. But
okay.
We'll get.
We may as well do that now then.
Okay.
Because we're getting
fine. So, based on everything, when you take everything into consideration, and I mean everything, what makes logical sense to me, and this is me, Big Bad Bob talking, not for nobody else. What it seems to me is that a young 17-year-old John T. Martin was corresponding with General Edwin Walker, as both being part of the Minutemen organization. General Walker had been in the news recently. He may have started corresponding with General Walker through the mail. He may have let General Walker know, hey, my family's coming to Dallas on vacation. It'd be nice to stop by and see you and meet you in person and maybe have a chat. So they go to Dallas. He shows up at General Walker's house and he's got a home movie camera.
Oh, you have a video camera, huh?
Notice General Walker himself is not in the footage. You would think that you would want somebody to take your picture.
A selfie of something.
With, a 63 version of a selfie, where you would have got one of General Walker's houseboys to hold the camera while, you got your arm around General Walker and maybe one hand on his crotch or, something. But anyway, there's no General Walker in the footage. It's just his house. Okay. But it also shows the interior of his house, which tells me that General Walker had John T. Martin inside of his house. Excuse me. And if he was inside of his house, they had a conversation. And of course, it probably went a little something like this.
How can I help, sir?
They probably talked about extreme right-wing things, the Minutemen type stuff, blah, blah, blah. He probably mentioned to Walker, hey, me and my family are headed over to New Orleans next. And General Walker said, oh, you are? Why don't you look up a fellow by the name of Guy Bannister when you get there? He's a fellow Minuteman. Maybe you can talk to him and see what's going on over there. So he does. He goes to New Orleans. He goes to the office of Guy Bannister, looks him up. And Guy Bannister looks at this young fellow and sees that he has a movie camera and says, hey, you know what, young boy? He said, how about 4 o'clock? You head over to Canal Street and see if you can catch a fella getting arrested on film for me. Okay. And maybe that spooked him. Maybe his family had to leave or they had to go out to eat, or he never got back to talk to Bannister about anything. Or maybe they just left New Orleans. Maybe he was supposed to meet back up with Bannister and give him the footage. I don't know. But anyway, to me, that seems like the only logical turn of events that explains the Martin film that we have today. And again, this is pure speculation, mind you, on my part. I'm just taking you through the logical journey in my head as to what could have possibly happened. But, Joe might think differently. So, yes, Joe.
This is one of the, actually, I agree with Rob in most every aspect, except we disagree on one very small aspect. And that's, again, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to have logical, critical thinking, debate, and come up with the most plausible scenario. And again, this scenario of how he was directed or to film the fracas was confirmed by the only person to have seen him alive, which was Gary Schoner, who said that makes a lot of sense. And I think if he was in Dallas on a family trip and he stopped by his hero's house, which is General Walker, he goes inside, he has a conversation with him. He goes, how can I help? I find it more improbable for them to be going to Minnesota, to Dallas, to New Orleans. I think John T. might have gone on his own to Dallas. And Rob and I have gone back and forth. And well, he was only a 17-year-old kid. How would he get a plane flight? Would his parents even let him? But as someone that graduated from military school, I had the utmost trust, probably more than I have now from my parents. And I could have probably pulled that off, especially if you're thinking 1963 in the South, even though they were from the North. So I think he was possibly directed to go there once Walker saw that he had a video camera to contact someone like Guy Bannister or someone on the far right involved with the sheep tipping off Oswald. But how he got there is not extremely critical to this whole story. But the fact is, he got there, and we believe he was instructed to film this August 9th fracas because either the previous fracas didn't get the attention it deserved, or because he wanted to help out. And General Walker took advantage of his eagerness, and you know, it's not a far flight from Dallas to New Orleans, even in '63. And I think he could have probably convinced his parents to go by himself for a day or two. There's no obviously pictures of his family, which you would think you would want to kind of document.
But there's none in Dallas either.
Yes, sure. So that is something we are disagree on in a little way and how we got there, but he got there and he managed to get this on tape. And then the campaign began, right? There was an undeniable campaign to sheep dip Oswald after this event, right? From the pleading guilty to that, and then we showed you the VT Lee letter on August 1st. So there's a lot of interesting things of the story that John T. could clear up for us. It would be small pieces of the puzzle, but you know, we continue to try. So, and theorize, and let's see what the chat is saying about it.
Yeah, there's a couple questions about when this occurred, and it wasn't days. It says how many days after the shooting at Walker's. This was months. The shooting happened in April. This was in August.
Yeah, you have to think that it was early August if he's going to New Orleans by August 9th to catch that on fracas, the fracas on film.
Unless I agree. Minuteman Martin needs to be found and asked for sure.
Yeah.
Did he say he actually met Walker in Dallas?
No, he didn't say shit.
Yeah. Weisberg and Schoner were only concerned about the Oswald portion of this film. They could have cared less about the Walker portion. They never did put two and two together and figure, you know, how much importance that it was, or what the astronomical odds of General Walker's house being on the same roll of film as the guy who supposedly shot at his house and murdered the president on the same reel of film back to back. The odds of that happening organically are just too astronomical to even think about.
Yeah.
But to illustrate a little something about General Walker, where was General Walker on November 22nd, 1963?
He was in. You want me to answer?
No, because you know the answer.
Okay, fine.
He was in New Orleans, folks. Okay. And I got a document here from the Louisiana State Police who were surveilling General Edwin Walker from November the 20th when he got there in New Orleans until the morning of the 22nd when he left. And it says, on November the 20th, 1963, at about 11 a.m., I informed Mr. Frank Manning of the Attorney General's office of a mysterious meeting the above subject had in Judge Leander Perez's office in the National American Bank building. Later, there was also a meeting at the National Bank of Commerce in the National Bank of Commerce garage building. While I was not in the meeting room proper, but noticed several of the people that were in attendance there, I noted that especially one, Joseph Newborough, was there. Now, they also go at the bottom, they go on to say Joe Newborough is considered to be a very dangerous individual. His record is available from the FBI. Jack Martin has been missing from the city. However, I understand he was seen a couple days ago and that he had grown a Van Dyke beard. He is also a dangerous psychopath. He has a long record in mental institutions. His record is also available by the FBI. Now, this is coming from the Louisiana State Police, folks. Joe Newborough worked with Jack Martin in a private detective office. He was also worked with Guy Bannister at one point as well. So all of these people are interconnected. All of these people you think about in New Orleans, like Martin, Bannister, Walker knows them. Walker knows them. Judge Leander Perez is one of the biggest, richest, bigots, anti-communists you ever want to meet. And he had deep, deep pockets. They say Thursday, 11/21, 63, 8 p.m., General Walker had another meeting and had approximately 90 people there. I talked to General Walker for quite some time, asking his acquaintance, and did not leave the hotel until about 1 a.m., but I was unable to learn of anything of any importance. There was evidently no further activity on the general's part, and I was unable to learn at what time the general left the city. I understand Mr. Newborough was recently convicted of a federal offense involving use of the mails to defraud, that Mr. Newborough was also in the Marines and was an expert in jiu-jitsuism. Mr. Newborough was also very friendly with one Jack Martin. Mr. Jack Martin is the man who filed a petition with the State Central Committee in an endeavor to disqualify Mr. Gramelian as a candidate for Attorney General on the grounds he had been convicted on federal grounds and so forth and so forth. We know that this was done by Mr. Martin on the instructions of Mr. Leander Perez. Mr. Martin's correct name is Edward Stewart Suggs. He was born in Arizona and he is about 44 years old. He appears to have a long criminal record and is wanted for murder somewhere around Dallas or San Antonio. I'm not yet aware of the full disposition of these murder charges. Respectfully submitted, DG Special Agent number 4951. So, you know, they were watching Edwin Walker in New Orleans as he's associating with all of these people who we believe were involved in somehow in sheep dipping Oswald and possibly the assassination itself. So very interesting stuff.
Yes. We got one question. He was on a plane bragging about his alibi. And then another comment, he got signatures, exclamation point. Yes, he wanted to establish his alibi very, very carefully. Is that true, Rob?
What's that?
That he was on the plane during the time of the assassination?
No, he didn't leave New Orleans until the morning of the 22nd.
Right. Well, he spent the night of November 22nd in Shreveport, Louisiana, which will actually come into play in our our James Herbert Martin presentation. But Shreveport, Louisiana, if you go and look on a map, is almost the exact halfway point that one would travel going to Dallas and New Orleans. But he did spend the night in Shreveport, Louisiana. He did fly there, I believe, and then of course, as we all know, or a lot of us know, he was on the phone with the German newspaper at 7 a.m. the next morning, telling the newspaper how Oswald shot at him as well. So,
allegedly. Der Fukenstücken.
Oh, I can't pronounce the name of that newspaper, and we tried to find. Oh, you did. You're better than me. I tried to find a hard copy of that newspaper, but there are documents about him talking to them.
So, Joe, you got anything left in the pipeline? Because I got one other thing we need to cover before we get out of here.
Fire away. We are past our
hour.
Well, yeah.
Well past our hour.
Yeah. Well, this is
one other thing to include here.
We wanted to go into the context.
We would be remiss if I didn't point this out. Okay, because I came across some very interesting stuff when it comes to the University of Minnesota itself and being a hub for the intelligence agencies in the 1960s. And I came across some very important documents that are all in the repository. I'm going to upload them here when we get done this show. It is the report to President Malcolm Moose on political surveillance at the University of Minnesota from Eugene Eidenberg, the Assistant Vice President of Administration, University of Minnesota. Now, I'm not going to read the entire 40-page report to you here, but I will, highlight some of the table of contents for you and go over a little bit of the introduction. But it goes over admissions and records, University Police Department, foreign student surveillance, other university practices, interviews, 1968 policy on student records, 1966 policy on photo surveillance of rallies and demonstrations, admissions and records forms for replying to requests for information, copies of weekly intelligence reports to the governor of the state, policy memo from Director of Admissions and Records to Staff, 1971, CLA information policy. So a little bit of this introduction. So this report has been prepared after careful research and analysis of information given to me by individuals who have been in a position to know about the relationship between federal intelligence agencies and the University of Minnesota. While I've talked with many people in conducting this inquiry, no one reading this report should assume that all persons with knowledge of this issue involved have been reached. Necessary limits of time and relevance of information have required that I make some judgments about the limits of the investigation and about what would constitute necessary and sufficient information to answer fully the questions before the university. This report reaches you after more than 20 interviews with people who had information that would be helpful to the inquiry. Relevant documents, photographs, memoranda, newspaper articles have been collected and analyzed, and I have conducted a thorough search of the University Police Department's files in the course of this investigation. So it goes on and on, blah, 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 right? And something popped off on January the 1st, 1971. CBS Evening News carried a report from Mr. Richard Cason, former military intelligence agent assigned to the Special Investigation Branch of the 113th Region V, or Region 5, that confirmed the earlier NBC program and further alleged that agents from the 113th had ready and complete access to the files of the university's Admissions and Records Department, and that foreign students had been subjected to lie detector tests administered by the officials of the 113th unit. 2 photos alleged to have come from the files of the University of Minnesota Police Department were displayed on the program as examples of the information sharing practices between the police department and military intelligence. It appears that investigating officers of federal agencies have had regular access to student records and files in the Office of Admissions. These include completed application forms, transcripts from high school, memos placing holds on registration, memos clearing holds, residence applications, letters from counselors or parents, petitions for exceptions to rules, evaluations of work taken at other colleges, achievements, aptitude test scores, university transcripts, letters of inquiry, copies of university correspondence with students, counseling report summaries, name changes, joint registration applications, notes based on discussions with the student, degree applications. The only thing it doesn't cover is medical records, pretty much.
Yeah, they were all over the University.
So this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. And they had the CIA on campus. They had the FBI on campus. They had military intelligence on campus. And a very funny thing, just to relate this little quick story, Joe, about when Harold Weisberg and Gary Schoner were at the University of Minnesota during their speech.
Right.
Somebody pointed out to Harold Weisberg that there was two guys in the audience recording his speech. And so he called him out in front of everybody, and they got up and left.
That's so funny.
But
that actually makes me think of something I was thinking about this morning. So we've told the audience how long we've been working on these Martins and how many deep dives and a year we spent trying to figure out which was related to which. Was John T. Martin related to visiting John Martin Jr. at the, in Dallas, things like that. And we just completely were, actually, I completely forgot where I was going with that. Can you help me out here?
Hi, Caroline.
Yes, she came up fashionably late again. So
rumor has it she was vacuuming the carpet this time.
Oh, so do you think they were commie hunting on campus? Because, obviously the North, there would be more.
I think it was a lot of spying in general, not just on commies, but on, what do they call them, foreign nationals, even American students. I mean, and it all got exposed in like the early 70s, and all this shit hit the fan because of it. But I'm sure it wasn't just going on the University of Minnesota campus. I'm sure it was any big campus.
Any campus, yeah.
Throughout the United States back then, they had the university police sharing information with military intelligence, FBI, CIA. They were keeping tight tabs on what everybody was doing back then, because this is high time for demonstrations and things like that. So,
yeah, I completely agree. And I remember where I was going with it. I was like, who do you think the person, the IC that's assigned to us, do you think he's gone nuts trying to keep up with us and all these Martins so far? Has he given up and he's just like, just fuck this guy?
Literally right before, about 10 minutes before we went live, I'm trying to call Joe on the telephone. We connected. I mean, and this is just regular telephone. This is not like through Messenger or anything else. This is on a telephone. We literally connected and were disconnected 5 times in a row.
6 or 7, maybe. Yeah.
I mean, we'd be like, "Hey, what's up?" And click. And it said server unavailable on my end. I don't know what it said on your end.
Yeah, it just dropped. And then, you had it's funny because when we were recording, it was me with the internet issues.
So how does a cell phone not be able to reach the server? Because I wasn't even on Wi-Fi calling. It was
neither was I. Took it on and off. So
land-based, cell tower calling.
I think that's just their only answer. Just try to make it difficult because they can't keep up with the research. They're like, who is this?
They can try.
They can. If they go back a year plus of messages and like 10-minute voice memos, like 3 times a day, they might be able to. But let's try to wrap this up now. We definitely do you want to start in terms of final thoughts on John T. and maybe ideas for kind of taking it forward?
Yeah. So I'm glad we were able to dispel some of the common myths about the John T. Martin over the years, and inform a lot of people about the movie itself and the various incarnations of it through the years, and just how rare that it is. I mean, we were even in contact with Robert Groden to try to get his copy of the Martin film, and he couldn't find it, or it only contained the Oswald portion, things like that. So
it's 1,000 feet long.
Yeah, or it's 1,000 feet long, 35 millimeter. But then again, it only contained the Oswald portion. So good thing we didn't pay to have that digitized. But the important thing is, is to keep in mind is, to respectfully, if anybody continues this research, and we're not done yet either, to try to contact this guy and just see if he's willing to have a discussion. That's all. Because I think there's a lot of questions out there that still need to be answered about things regarding his film and his experiences. And, that's all I really wanted to say about that. Is just if you come across this guy or you try to contact him, be respectful. And, obviously he wants his privacy. But again,
for good reason.
Yeah. Things change after 10 years, 50 years.
He owes it to history, to be honest. He owes it to history to say exactly what happened. And I don't think anyone in their rational mind thinks that this guy was part of anything, but why you would want to stay out of it, I totally get. But at this point, 60 years after, 55 from 68, he's given his film to almost everyone. Why not give a statement with it? It makes no sense. And also the fact that he's pretty much disappeared doesn't help either, and just fuels these things. And we love to talk to him. We hope to, and we hope to have a part 2 on the John T. Martin show, hopefully. But we have many more to get to, and we'll have all our John T. files up at locals, as well as maybe something in the secret TSPD. And I don't know, I think this was a very good episode. We were kind of closing in on 2 hours, so we definitely didn't stick to our plan here of keeping it short and sweet. But this was an important show, and it deserved the context that we needed to give it. And that's, our first show was kind of a summary. We went to the most known Martin, but now we're getting into the weeds a little more. And if you think this was interesting, just wait. And Rob, I'll let you close it out with that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yes, once again, this show needed to be this long to get all this information out. We told you it was hard to condense this thing into 15-minute part of our Lancer presentation, but we did it. But here you get everything, 2 hours worth. Like I said, if you want all the files, access to everything we got, head over to the locals link in the description, and we'll have them up there here in a few minutes. And Jay, much better turnout than I thought we were going to get today. I mean, we're consistently 30 or 40 people in here all the time, so that's awesome. Much appreciated. Thank you for your support, everyone. The love you showed us, the super chats, super stickers. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you next time, folks. Take care.
Yes. Enjoy your rest of the weekend. Bye.
Peace.
Peace.